Hi, everyone. Welcome. I just wanted to do a spontaneous little interview with the lovely Tara Galeano today. Hi, Tara.
Hi, Sydney. Good to see you.
You too. I'm so stoked to have you here. And I'm going to be doing more of these little guest interviews to highlight all these wonderful folks who also work in the realm of like sex, intimacy, pleasure, all that great stuff. So really excited to introduce you to this community today, Tara.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of background. So Tara Galeano is an author, a retreat host, a speaker, and a sex therapist. She has worked with women for over 2 decades to get their sexy back. Ooh, I love that. She knows that there is pleasure in the body beyond our wildest dreams, and every woman can access it. In her Rediscovering My Body book, Tara teaches women how to show up for pleasure in their lives. She rediscovered her own body after leaving her 25-year marriage. Realizing that she had given so much of herself away, she knew that she needed to come back to the body's inherent wisdom. Oh, I love that. Through reconnecting with her body, Tara was able to understand what was right and pleasurable for her, how best to proceed from this wisdom, and most importantly, how to teach these lessons to other women who were clamoring for the same truth so that they too could transform their lives and reclaim their sensuality. Now, Tara has embodied this path and is moving forward to share this with women everywhere. I love that.
Thank you, Sydney. I love it too.
Yeah. And like, just from what I read to the audience here, do you mind going a little bit more in depth about your journey and how, like, what rediscovering your body looked like? I think that would be really cool to explore.
Sure. I was trained as a clinician, so I'm a psychotherapist, and then I studied to become a sexologist and got certified as a sex therapist. So it was a process, and I worked and I do work as a clinician, and I've been doing it for 20 years, over 20 years. So most of the work that I was doing for a large part of time, although effective, was more cerebral in nature because I was looking more at the theoretical concepts because I wasn't necessarily embodying them in my relationship. I imagine that I might have been, but yeah, even though we had a healthy sex life, there were certainly some major disconnects that I didn't know until after the dissolution of our marriage, because what I found was that I didn't feel safe and that there were huge contractions that were forming in my body that were really allowing limited capacity to experience pleasure because there wasn't more expansion. And so now that I'm more embodied and aware of the process of embodiment, I know what pleasure can be and how to have that. And so safety is a really big piece of that. And what I also find, which is some techniques that I use, are breath, sound, and movement are really critical vehicles to move the energy in the body. And that's true for trauma, right? To clear the blockages of trauma in our physiology, and also for more pleasure. So even though I may have known those things, yeah, conceptually now I know them on a much different level. And that journey was I studied with pelvic floor specialists, learning more about holistic pelvic care. And then I studied Tantra, I studied energy work, priestess training, yoga. And so really like, whew, all of the pieces that I was missing.
Amazing. That's such a cool, yeah, you got so many things to pull from there. Energy work, Tantra, you got somatic work, like holy,
Yeah.
I love this toolbox you have.
Yes. Yeah. And it's effective. It's so much more effective than the talk therapy that I was limited to before. That it was really, and it is really important for me to be guided by the ethical standards of my profession, and could also see the limitations of just talk therapy. I mean, now I'm doing somatic work, and I'm also doing some more creative work as well, in addition to just talk therapy. So I have a coaching business in addition to the sex therapy. I think sex therapy is a great access point for people. And then coaching is really about transformation. It's about committing to that process to achieve transformation in oneself.
Yeah, definitely. Because I know for myself, like when I've gone to see a therapist, I'm always wanting more. I'm like, can you give me some homework? Like, can you give me something to work on? Like, so that's what I love about coaching. It's like really putting practices into practice to like, yeah, work
Yes.
towards these results. That would,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think about therapy, I feel like it's transactional. So I'm going to pay, for this service. Maybe I'll come weekly, or maybe I'll go bi-weekly, depending upon my finances, depending my schedule. And so the commitment isn't necessarily there. And not that there's anything wrong with that, because again, I think that it's a great access point for those who want that. And then when it comes to commitment to the transformation, it really is about the embodiment, which take the practices and the routines of regular, consistent commitment. And so there's a different level. And I think there's a different understanding of what one can achieve in that world as well. And so therapy is a great point. And as a sex therapist, I mean, it is so much about embodiment and somatic work and about exercises. Like I always give my clients homework because I want them to be able to practice things at home because they can't do it in the office, right?
no. Yeah, and like for those folks who may be sitting here, because like myself included, I've experienced this. I'm like, okay, how do I get deeper into embodiment practices in order to tap into that pleasure that I'm wanting? Or people might be like, how do I do that? I know there's more to pleasure. I just don't know how to like access it.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I think there's different ways for different people. So it really is, it's good to contextualize the solution and where you're at today. So if you're in a partnership, it may be different than if you're by yourself. And so if you're wanting more pleasure with your partner, that's one pathway. But another pathway for all people, I would say, is really looking at solo sex practices. And so how are you pleasuring yourself? How are you really holding that pleasure within your body and understanding it? And so, what I like to invite people to do is not just masturbation, which tends to be genitally focused, but really look at solo sex as a self pleasure activity and to commit to the process of that and to do it regularly and to do it for a certain duration of time. And so, maybe if you normally engage in that for like 5 or 10 minutes, to maybe extend that to about 20 minutes to a half hour and really hold that space and to create, I would say, a ritual space in that you're creating an ambiance, that you're considering the senses. So maybe light a candle, light some incense, get your favorite chocolate, and
Yeah.
really setting the tone that this is a session or time of self-love. And then to deepen into the process that it's not just about genital connection, but it really is about self-pleasure. And to begin to notice the touch, right? The softness of the touch or the quality of the touch that might be a little bit more sexy, right? You're getting really more into the muscle or maybe more kinky, right? It's a little bit different. And also notice the temperature, right? What does it feel like? Is it cool? Is it hot? So I like people to think in threes. So temperature, touch, and texture. So even getting some objects like soft feathers or a spoon, right? A spoon is cool and metallic and it feels different and smooth. So really getting some options going because the imagination is a great tool for solo sex or for partnered sex. And it's one that I encourage people to employ. And then I'd also go back to what I said earlier to the 3 breath, sound, and movement. So how are you using the breath in the solo sex? Are you using sound? And are you using movement? And how are you using that? So I think those are really good ways to get started with the practice of solo sex, because I think that's a great way to reach for more pleasure.
Mm. Yeah, and I love how you mentioned just like bringing that sensual awareness and playfulness and like, and it doesn't have to be genital focused. I know we often see like self pleasure as like, oh yeah, let's just like go down there and get it done.
Yeah, get off and that's it. And I feel like, oh, okay. And that's one way. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. But when it's the only way and it becomes a default mechanism, then oftentimes it's good to look at expansion and what else can you do?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Focusing on the whole body, the whole experience. Yeah, just like you said, a really easy way to just tap in and get really present with yourself. I tell people like that's generally how you find out what you like and what you don't like. Like kind of
Yay!
exploring yourself, and it's also fun to explore with others. But
Mhm. I
yeah,
love that. Yeah. And that's what I like to say too. I like to say breath, sound, movement. And the fourth one is presence, right? Because if you can bring presence to all three, then wow, that's really the perfect combination.
yeah, definitely. And Tara, I'm so curious. Like, it sounds like you mostly work with women.
I work with men as well, and I do work with couples. I work with couples who are heterosexual and homosexual and all the variations in between. Primarily in my private practice, I have been working with, I was going to say, couples, but actually it does vary. It kind of ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's all women, sometimes it's all men, sometimes it's mostly couples. So it really does vary. The book that I wrote is primarily for women. So the Rediscovering My Body book was based off of the work that I'd done with women who'd had cancer. And then I reconfigured it to address all women because a lot of women were saying that they had the same type of issues around body image and reaching for more pleasure and really connecting with their sensual self. So I just, yeah, put it all in there. Sure.
Okay, cool. And the reason I asked that is because I've had some people lately. I've just been noticing themes of like, my partner's not interested in sex, but I am, and I don't know how to like make them realize how important it is to me, and like they don't seem interested, and it's really hard. So, what can you suggest to couples with like where one or both people may just be lacking in libido, or they're like, I'm not too interested? Like, where do you go from there with folks?
Yeah, that's a great question because I do see that a lot when I see couples, and I do see a lot of heterosexual couples. So I'll just reference that primarily is the couples are highly compatible and then their erotic life is not so juicy anymore. And so, yes, they live together as roommates and they find that they're not really feeling sexy. And all the other qualities of their relationship are great. And it's just the sex. And so, particularly for the couples that I'm seeing, it's been chronic and it's gone on like that for years, sometimes for decades. And there's a high level of dissatisfaction and even maybe sometimes the urge to go outside of the relationship, particularly if they're not in a monogamous relationship, or if they are in a monogamous relationship, they're desiring to go outside of it. So really things coming to a head for them. And so, yeah, oftentimes there's a high desire partner, and then there's a low desire partner, and the low desire partner has all the sex that they want, right? And the high desire partner is always wanting more. And so there is essentially too a power differential because this person's always satisfied and this person's not. And so in order to change that, shift the dynamics, I have lots of activities and exercises that I encourage people to do. But one in particular, and I just made a YouTube video on this, is really talking about sex, because that's what I find is a great place to start about affirming the partner. These are the things that I love that you do. These are the things, or these are the ways that you touch me that make me feel so, so juicy. And I love that. And then these are the things that I would like more of, or these are the things that I'd like to try that are different. And to have that conversation at a time where you're at a nice equilibrium, maybe outside of the sexual act, and that it's not connected to that, because oftentimes it's a vulnerable place and that's not an ideal time to have the conversation. But having the conversation scheduled at a separate time, and again, affirming the partner and then suggesting things that you'd like more of or that you'd like different, and come prepared for the conversation. Because if you're just going off the fly and you're just going by the things that you don't like, not going to be well received is my sense. But that you've done some work, that you've really searched about what it is that you desire and can speak about it in a way that's helpful, that's good. And I'd say practice in the mirror beforehand if you're uncomfortable. And recently what I've been trying to is, if you can't speak it, maybe you can write it.
Yeah.
And so just writing it down, either for yourself to use as a note or writing it down as a love letter and then passing it on to your partner.
Mhm.
Both ways are really great. And it gives you an opportunity to then have the conversation because you've already written down what it is that you desire. Sometimes those things are hard to say.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if we're not in the habit, like you said, of talking about sex regularly. It's kind of one of
Yeah.
those things, for some reason, we like think we should know how to like engage in our with our partners in this way.
Yeah.
And no one really taught us. We just went off experimentation, most of us, myself included. So
Yes. Oh, yeah.
no one,
Experimentation
yeah.
or subconscious ideas or beliefs that kind of permutate our being that we're just not even aware. I mean, yeah, there's so many influences, and to have conscious conversations around sex and sexuality when we don't have fluency, when we oftentimes don't have a vocabulary, can be difficult and challenging, and it takes time, and we get messy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I love that this is coming up because it's normalizing this issue.
Yes,
Which
exactly. Yep.
is,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
glad it's come up for anyone watching. If you feel like this is you currently or has been in your life, like it's normal and it's okay and it can shift.
It does, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, with conscious effort and focus and attention, all things can shift, and with love, right? When we're not so demanding and berating of ourselves, and we can just be like, "Okay, I never learned this," or "I didn't learn this in the way that I really needed to learn it, so I'm learning it now. I'm taking responsibility. I'm an adult. I'm gonna make this what I want it to be." And, yeah, to give yourself some grace and some ease that it will be. And oftentimes I just wrote a newsletter to my community, and I was saying that my lover calls me shy, and he thinks it's so cute because he's like, "You're so confident and so fluent." And sometimes I'm shy, and it's just a nice contrast, and it's just true.
Yeah. We all can show up in different ways and different times.
Yep. Mhm.
And me as well.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious. So when you were talking about that power differential among partners, because I've been that partner where it's like lower desire, like don't want to engage in that way as much. My needs were being met in a certain way. So, but then there's guilt. There's like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to reject my partner like regularly. I want to like I want to be more interested. So how do you support people in that position? Because they like want to change and be different and please their partner, but like they just
Yeah.
they're also like, well, a no is a no, you know?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, two things, and really looking at the comfort level of saying no, and how does that feel? Because sometimes it doesn't feel good. So then we say yes or we say maybe, and it's not true, right? And it really is a no, and we need to say no. So I created a video on that too, because that was really a big one that came up, I see.
Yeah.
So claiming your no, really, that's important. And then the second piece I see in my practice is that when that happens and that becomes a chronic pattern, is that even then the high desire partner may stop initiating because of the rejection. They're like, well, I'm always going to get the same answer. She's always going to say no, or he's always going to say no. So why am I even trying? And that is such a defeating place, I think, for that person. And so, because what I truly believe is that this low desire is a function of the relationship. It's not that it's one person's problem, like there's something wrong with them, but it's a function of the relationship. Something's happening where there is not an activation of the erotic life, right? Or that erotic space. And things can shift to activate that. Maybe it's not a high passionate making love, but there can be some more, I would say, warm sex where it's more affectionate and loving and sensual. And what needs to happen, and I think this is really important, is that the low desire partner, once they've said no, then they need to pick up the onus and say, I will initiate next time. And then to follow through. Okay, so, and to set a time parameter. It's like you're going to try it in a week, or maybe it's 2 weeks. It has to be something realistically that you can commit to, but you must commit to that because you need to begin to initiate. Because oftentimes we fall into patterns, and the person with the high desire is always initiating, and the person with the low desire is always saying yes or no. And they need to step out of their comfort zone and begin to initiate and put their sexy on. Like, how are they going to seduce their partner? How are they going to invite them? I mean, so it kind of puts a different cap on their head where they get to initiate things and use their imagination and their creativity, and it can be fun. And
Mm-hmm.
chances are the other person's probably going to say yes because they're the high desire partner. So it's a little bit easier for that person. And then it doesn't feel so daunting for the high desire partner. And oftentimes what I hear then is, but if I don't feel like it, it's like, well, if you really don't feel like it, then do you really want to be in this relationship, right? Because sometimes we need to do things that we don't feel like we want to do. And what is it that you don't want to do? Because my sense is there must be something that you want to do. Maybe it's just kissing, and maybe it's not intercourse, or maybe it's just oral sex, or maybe there's something intimate that you want to engage in, like a full body massage, but you want to give to them, even though it's not whatever you think it should be, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sort of comes down to like expressing what you want and feeling comfortable in that. Be like, hey, maybe today like I want to just kiss you. That would feel really nice. Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
yeah, because sometimes I know even in my experience, I've been a little bit resistant to like kissing and making out because I'm like, oh, it's gonna go farther and I don't want it to. So then I'd just be like,
Yeah.
no. But I
Yeah.
couldn't necessarily voice that at
Mhm.
in the at the time. So yeah, it just really comes down to like our needs and like being comfortable voicing what we want and
Mhm.
having those boundaries for ourselves, but also like you said, like taking ownership, like, okay, if I say no this time, like what can I do to like put intention and effort into our intimate relationship as well?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and to set up regular dates. So you can have a kissing date, you can have a massage date. And so this way you know that those elements will always live on, even though it may not be intercourse. Or maybe when you're having more sensual contact, you'll feel like, well, okay, now I'm actually ready to have more intercourse.
yeah.
So just try it on, see what changes, if anything does.
Yeah. Ooh, so fun for everyone to try.
Yes, that's why I love my work.
Oh yeah. People probably come in with rosy cheeks.
They're glowing, like, oh yes, when they're happy, they're really happy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Tara, I know you mentioned you have like a course or something coming up soon. I'd love for you to share about that.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so I'm going to be teaching the Rediscovering My Body course, which I've taught for a number of years at a local hospital in Boulder, Colorado. And now I'm making it available as an online course. And it will be a 5-week course, and it will begin with the new moon on Monday, May 30th. So I invite you to check it out. If you're interested, please email me, because that's the best way to sign up for the course. It will be 5 weeks, and it will be exciting and fun. Well, you'll learn more techniques and tools about connecting with yourself in a more intimate way.
Ooh, yay, I'm excited for this. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll put the link in this email when I send it out so folks can know where to find you if they're interested. They can totally message you through there.
Oh, wonderful. Good. Thank you.
No worries. Is there anything else you'd love to share, words of wisdom or anything before we wrap up?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think the most important things is that when you're looking at increasing your pleasure and connecting more with yourself or with your partner, that it's really good to be playful. Like, what brings you joy? It's not a serious task. I mean, it doesn't need to be daunting. It doesn't need to be something that you have to do, that you need to check it off your list, but it really is about embracing joy. And so to be creative, to be imaginative, to bring in laughter, to bring in fun. That's really what I'd love. That's a message I want to impart today.
Yeah, give yourselves permission to be fun, flirty, sexy, whatever you want to
Mhm.
be.
I love it. Yes.
So good. Well, thank you so much for being here. My heart feels so fuzzy, and I'm excited for folks to see this and take some of your, tips into practice and see how that shifts things in their relationships.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me on, Sydney.
You're welcome. I'll be happy to have you back another day. So thanks for watching, everyone.